So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff we can do with arrays. So we're going to dive back into arrays, and this time we're going to add into our arrays. So maybe we've got one array here, and I'm going to call this one my array D. And I'm not going to change around this stuff too much, but maybe just a few values there so we can see that there are some different values within my array D. So if you've got multiple arrays, it's actually going to be really easy to add in and update arrays. So we've got an option for that, and the way that we can do that is we can simply concatenate that array. So I can set a completely entirely separate my array E, and I could contain values of my array A, and I can concat it with my array D. So just making sure that I got all of those array identifiers proper there. So now whenever we console log out that my array E, just to show you how this is going to look. So console log, and I'm going to output my array E, and maybe I'll show you the length of my array E as well, so while we're at it. And I'm going to hide some of this stuff here so it doesn't confuse the purposes of this lesson. So let's take a look at what happens now. So remember, we're joining the two arrays together, and we see that we start out with my array A, and we've joined my array D into it, and we've combined them together into my array E. What happens if you want to output your array maybe as a usable string? So you don't want to necessarily have all these items, but you want to be able to see them, maybe visually present them to the user. So there's a number of different options that you can do, and one of them is, of course, I'm going to just console log out this one. And of course, we could always set a variable to contain this string value. I'm going to take the shorter one. I'm going to take my A, and I'm going to use to string. And what this is going to do is this is going to change my A into a string. And we're console logging all of this out. So instead of having all these values as separate, we have them comma separated as a string value. We can also join together, so similar to creating it as a string. And of course, this one again, we could do the same thing as the string, and we can contain a variable if we wanted to. So this is again one of those things that's optional. So we have another option here. We can do join. So we join all the array elements into a string, but maybe we don't want to comma separate them. We want to create some other type of separator. So this is where we specify the separator. So I'm going to put this smiley face, happy face, couple spaces in between there as the separator. And now I'll show you how this one turns out within the console. So we see this string, but we've gotten rid of the commas. Instead of the default commas, we've updated our own separator within the string. So a lot of really neat things you can do. We can also, if we want to only return part of the string, we can do that as well. So we can do that with slice, and of course we always have that option to place it in as a variable and then work with it within our JavaScript. But I'm just trying to demonstrate all these different pieces of functionality that you have within arrays. So if I've got my array, and this time I'm going to use that concatenated one. So we've got a lot of content in there. And if I want to return back maybe only part of the array, so I'll do something like that. And we'll show you what happens there. And maybe I should console log out that array so that we have that right above it within the console. And let's see what this turns out. So there's a problem there. My array E is not a function. So another error, but a good thing because we can see what's happened here with the error and with the issue. And of course, I didn't include the slice, so that's why it's actually looking for a function. So my array E on its own is not a function, but I needed to include the function of slice. So let's try that again. And with the errors, we see actually the line of code that created that error. So if I want to take a look at that, I could see the line of code here within the dev console as well. So maybe shrink some of this stuff down. I've got it really enlarged here, so this is why it's harder to see. But let's just go back to the console and refresh it, and we see that this time we're not getting the error, and we see that we're only returning a part of the array. So we're returning starting at index 1 and stopping at index 3. So this is why we're returning these two items here. And just going back to our code, so we can adjust this. So later on, we're going to also look at how we can make this dynamic. So if we had these increasing or different values being represented here dynamically, this would also return back different pieces of the array. And this is how we begin to work with JavaScript and making it dynamic within the code. And as you can see, there's a lot of different things that we've covered off here on arrays. So it's definitely worth taking a look through the source code, trying it out for yourself, seeing what you can do with your arrays, create several different arrays, and then just practice updating, adding items, pulling out items, and see what you can do with your arrays. And try to make it as dynamic as possible using JavaScript and not as much putting static values like we did over here, but try to create some dynamic values so that your array becomes more flexible and adjusts with your code. So I do advise to check that out to practice and get familiar with all the wonderful things you can do with arrays.